Russia has accelerated its attacks across Ukraine's eastern and southern regions. This video from the Russian military claims to show damage in Kherson, which is in Russian-occupied territory. Charlie D'Agata went to the Ukrainian front lines and spoke to some of those who are fighting. He is standing by in Bakhmut, Ukraine, to join us now. Charlie, good morning. Charlie, you went to the front lines in the very east of the country. How does what you've seen there differ from what you've seen in other parts of the country?
Oh, yeah. Well, Emery, it's like night and day. Where we were in the front lines, obviously they don't want us to give any clues away to identifying their position. We also had to be very careful about how we shot while we were there. But I know it sounds like sort of nuanced information, but the trenches that you saw in that piece, or the trenches that we saw, they were freshly dug. And I mean like dug within the past 2 days. There's no rain, the soil hadn't dried out. So that is a fallback position that is brand spanking new. And as you drive out along the avenues, they've cut down the trees to use as defenses against a Russian advance. And that's when you know it's real. You know, we've seen some of the defense systems in Kyiv before, when Russians were trying to take over, or appeared to be taking over that city. We were in Dnipro or Zaporizhia. Again, Zaporizhia especially, well within the target of the Russian military. But as you get to the front lines, there are no civilians there, or if they are, they're hiding. So there's not a single car on the street, not a single person walking around. And what's important about describing the fact that these are new defense positions and they've cut down the trees along the avenues and they've dug in these holes these trenches is because this is the fallback. You know, the commander told us that the forces are just getting hammered in front of us on that front line. And this has been to prepare for, we don't like to use the word retreat, but certainly a fallback position, because they just do not have the heavy artillery to match the Russians in what he called was a softening operation. So they're just pounding these areas, including areas where there are civilians, including cities in the east, we're just getting nailed with artillery. And as soon as there's nobody left and Ukrainian forces are pulled back, then they start bringing in Russian infantry. So they're outgunned, and certainly they don't have the manpower to hold them off. So that is a fallback position, and it's in a very important and critical and vital part of what's going on in the east, because the Russians have got the east and they're pushing west. They've also got north. It's kind of like a C. The Russians are also pushing from the north to the south and from the south to the north. And the big concern is that they're going to cut off this area, have a resupply route to places like Dnipro and Zaporizhia, and there will be Ukrainian forces that are trapped with Russian forces on either side. I hope I haven't overcomplicated that, but that's what we saw.
No, you paint a very good picture, actually. And speaking of trapped, we know that there are also many civilians still trapped in this region, hoping to get out. The UN Secretary General met with Vladimir Putin, and one of the reports that came out of that was that Vladimir Putin agreed in principle to UN involvement in a civilian evacuation, which didn't sound like a ceasefire, didn't sound like a safe corridor, sounded sort of a general nod in the direction. He is meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky today, or perhaps has already met with him. Do we have any more information about that meeting?
Yes, well, first of all, President Zelensky was annoyed, to say the least, that the Secretary General went to Moscow before coming here. He was pleased that the Secretary General went to places like Bucha and Irpin to witness for himself some of the incredible atrocities that are taking place here. Because there has always been an argument in almost every conflict, including this one, that the UN really is powerless to stop either side from fighting and to stop them from these atrocities. However, they can record these atrocities. The UN can come in with international observers and see what is unfolded here. So yes, on one level, it will just be a discussion. It will be as civil as they can possibly make it. But on another, they specifically want, the Ukrainian government specifically wants UN inspectors here to see what they believe are war crimes, and that will be a war crimes investigation. And as you may have pointed out, Mariupol. Okay, so it's a real concern because it is surrounded by Russian forces. First of all, Ukrainian soldiers don't want to go in there with the convoy because they don't trust that the Russian soldiers are going to hold fire. They also don't believe that the civilians who are inside there will have safe transportation in a humanitarian corridor away from there. And why? Because there are fighters inside Mariupol too. So then you have a situation where you're going to put the men to one side, and you have the civilians on the other, and it gets very messy, which is why they want to have UN observers or international observers who are fully capable of organizing these sort of evacuations. It's happened in several conflicts, and that specifically is what he will be asking for help for because of this terrible tragedy that's unfolding in Mariupol. So yes, on one level, it's sort of diplomatic handshake, but on another, he'll want results.
Right, right. Charlie, thank you very much.